into array and vector, let's revise a little bit what we have covered last week. Okay, last week is all about functions. So what you normally do, without function, your codes will be very long. Yeah, without function, your code will be very long. Why we introduce function is because we want to modularize your program so that you assign function in order to achieve certain tasks. Okay, so suppose if let's say you want to calculate addition, right? So maybe you can just create function for your for calculating the addition. All right. Okay. So what we are going to cover today is array. As usual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give example of codes. Okay, how array is being used, so that at least you know the program that uses array. For vector, most probably we are going to cover in the second half of the lecture. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you one scenario. All right. Why array is being used? Okay, what is an array? Array is basically variables, or a way for you to create a variable that can have multiple values. Yeah. So I'm going to give you one example. Suppose if let's say you want to get one input. Yeah. So if let's say you want to get one input, so what you normally do is you can just write C in X, right? Suppose if let's say you want to get 100 input. So logically, based on the knowledge that you have at the moment, you are going to create so many variables, right? X, Y, Z, and then maybe A, B, and so on. And then you are going to do all this, so many C in, yeah? So each is going to hold one variable, right? Okay, so this is what we normally do if let's say you don't have array. Okay, now the purpose of array is for you to basically manage this kind of problem. Let's say you want to accept maybe 50 inputs. So how can you easily manage it using just one single variable? Okay, this is where array is being used. Okay, so so rather than having this long way of solving things and then so many variables that you need to declare, you might as well just need to declare an array. This is how you declare an array. Okay, so having this, you can read and then store your data something like this. Okay, x0, x1, x2, x3, and x4. Okay, and then if let's say I want to see out, then I can just see out x0, okay. I'm going to explain this a little bit later. All right. Now this is what we call as array. Okay, a variable that you can create in order to hold more than one value. Right. Later on, we are going to see the structure lah. So in this case, the name of that array is X. The size of the array is 5. That means that array is going to be able to have 5 elements. Yeah. Now this is how you can access the array. This is how you access the array. I mean, let's say you want to store, you want to start storing values inside the array. This is how you do it. Okay. The starting, this is what we call as index. The starting index for the array X is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So that's how C++ works. The first element of an array is addressed as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you are still having 5 elements over here because the size is 5. Okay. So similarly, if let's say you want to display the content of an array, this is how you do it. X0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if let's say I run, okay. Yeah, this one is quite slow. Let's try to change this to here. Okay. So once I run this, so I'm going to have C++ to execute this line. That means it requires some input from me. So if let's say I put here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay. So effectively, I'm storing 10 to x0, 20 to x1, 30 to x2, 40 to x3, and 50 to x4. Okay. So this is how array works. Let me just draw something for you. Yeah. So if let's say I create in x5, okay, x5. So this 5 refers to size. Yeah. The moment you declare, the value over here refers to the size of the array. Okay. So effectively, what I'm having here is I'm having an array. Okay. The name of the array is x. Okay. And the variable for this one is x0. And right, and then I have over here x1. Okay, and then x2, and this is x3, and the last one is x4. Okay, so this is how it works. All right. So here, when I enter 10, I'm going to enter it into x0. So here I'm going to have 10, and then this is 20. Oops. This one is 30, this one is 40, and this one is 50. Okay. So, and then when I see out x0, x1, x2, x3, x4, I'm going to just display whatever the content x0 until x4. Okay. So that is the simplest demo for you with regard to array. Okay. Of course, since array is supposed to hold a large number of values, so this is not the most efficient one. So you might want to change this to for loops. Let's say for int I equals to 0, I is less than 5. Okay, because the size is 5, and then I plus plus. So over here, I'm just taking this, put it here, all right? And instead of putting 0 over here, I'm just replacing this with I. So this is the most efficient way to deal with array. Okay, so rather than rewriting again and again and again with different index over here, I might as well I just use for loops. Normally, for loops is the best way for you to use in conjunction with array. All right. So similarly for cout, rather than writing all these repeated quotes, might as well I just put it here in 0 until in 5. So this one is just cout. Okay. And I just replace this by I. Okay. So by having this, I'm going to have the same effect just now. Okay, sorry, this one I think we need to enter like this because it's in a for loop. Okay. All right, any questions so far? So this is basically the basic things that you need to understand. In array, of course, the first thing you need to know how to declare an array. This is how you declare an array. How do you access the array? This is how you access the array. Similarly, like this as well. Then you need to also know if, let's say, you are creating function, how do you pass array from main to a function? Okay. And normally, yeah, for the size over here, we create a constant. Suppose in size, okay, equals to 5. So we just put a constant over here, and then we change this to size. Okay. All right. So one good thing about having this way of writing codes is that if, let's say, your size changes, okay, so there's no need for you to keep on changing this, and this. You just need to change once over here. So, and then everything will follow. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our slide. So basically, the purpose of having array is to hold more than one values. Okay, more than one values. You can store more than one values of the same type. Okay, so as an example over here, this is x. You can store more than one value according to the size, and then of course it is of the same type only, right? So that means one array the same type only. Yeah, you cannot have array where you have so many different types inside the array, right? Okay, so the values are stored in the, of course, memory location, but it is adjacent from one another, right? So that's why this is neighbor to this one, this is neighbor to this one, this is neighbor to this one, right? Okay. So you declare using this bracket. This is how you declare the type, the name of your array, and the size. Okay. So this is effectively what happened. So you are going to have your index 0, the first one. This is index 1, and this is 2, so on and so forth, until 4. Okay. What happened if you try to access more than 4? Is it possible? Let's say here, I write cout x5. Okay. Because your maximum element is x4, right? What happens if I try to access x5? Let's try to run. Some compiler will give you error lah. But in this case, looks like we can still run. Yes. Okay, let me just stop first. Okay, somehow it is not working. Just go back to here. Okay, some compiler will give you syntax error because it is out of location. Because once you create 5 location, that means you can access x0 until x4, right? Similarly for this one. Okay, this one is very slow. I don't know what happened for this one. Let's try to. Okay, somehow it hangs. This one is quite slow. Never mind. Okay, so try not to exceed this, right? Because array will always start from 0. I think in some programming language, the index is starting from 1. I'm not sure whether you have tried MATLAB before. Yeah, MATLAB is using array. The first element is indexed as 1. Okay, so just read the documentation for whatever programming language that you're going to use. Okay, so some terminology. This int is of course data type. Test is basically the name of the array. Okay, in this case, the name is test. 5 over here is the size declarator, the size of your array, the size of the element that you can put. Yeah, number of elements. Now the size of an array is number of element multiplied by size of each element. Okay, what do you mean by this? Integer, how many bytes? Can you still remember? Integer in memory, I think 4 bytes, right? 4 bytes. And then you have 5 element of integer, so 5 multiplied by 4 bytes, you are going to have 20 bytes. That is what we meant by size of an array. But don't worry about this. Normally, when we say size, we are referring to the number of elements. Okay, the number of elements. Some books are referring to total number of bytes allocated. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for example, here you have 5. Size of an integer is 4 bytes. So 5 multiplied by 4, you are going to have 20 bytes in the memory. Right. For long, of course, you are going to have 8 bytes. Okay. All right. So this one is quite similar to what I have mentioned earlier. Normally, the size, we just create a constant. Okay. Create a constant. To create a constant is quite easy. You follow the normal variable declaration and then just put constant in the beginning. Initialize it to some value. So then that values will be here. Correct? You cannot have a variable here. Yeah. Then it will create syntax error. So suppose if let's say I put here int y equals to 10, right? Or maybe in size equal to 10. And then if let's say I put here size, C++, I think, wow, quite long. Okay, let's try to run this. Quite strange. Sometimes your compiler still accept this as a variable, right? By default, most of the compiler did not accept this as okay. Looks like this compiler accept this as a variable, but I think you can check with the compiler that you're using in the lab. This one is supposed to be a constant, all right? Just to be consistent with the one in the textbook, yeah. Whatever that you put here must be constant, and somehow this compiler also accept memory which is outside the one that you have declared. Okay, right. Okay, but you have to be very careful over here because some compiler will give you syntax error here. Okay. So how to access? Accessing is just using the subscript. Okay, you are going to start from 0 until 4. Just remember this. Okay, for example here, let's say test 0 equal to 79. You are referring to this location. So this one is 79. Okay. See out test 0, you are going to have 79. See in test 1, that means you are referring to this. Okay. So test 4 equals to test 0 plus test 1. That means test 4 is here equals to 79 plus whatever value that you have here. So the result will be stored here. Yeah. All right. So that's how you access. Okay. This one is illegal. Yeah. If let's say you want to access your array, you cannot access it without the index. Okay. C out test. Okay. C++ won't understand this. Okay, let me just. Okay, let me just run. So I think you are going to get. Oh. Some compiler might not give you syntax error, but it will give you logic error. Okay. So X is basically an address. Yeah, that's fine. I think don't use this compiler. I mean, this compiler will get you confused. All right. So let me just show to you. I think this one is more time to run, but this one is quite slow today. I don't know what happened. Okay. So just remember, this is illegal, but in certain compiler, it will still show you the address rather than the content of an array. Okay. So if you want to see the content of an array, always access through the index. Yeah. One by one. Right. So this is an example. You have hours. This is the size, which is 6. And this is what I have shown to you earlier. Okay, you start with 0 until 5. Okay, don't exceed 5 because the number of element allocated is 6. And then similarly, you see out as normal. All right. Okay, so this is what happened. See out test 3. Basically, oh, this is ours. Okay. This is how you access. You can also access using I. This I is basically a variable. Okay, so that means you are accessing test 5. Okay, in this case. All right, any questions so far? Quite clear, yeah? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, normally we are going to use array together with for loops. Okay, because the purpose of array is because we have too many values. So in order to handle these too many values, you are going to use loops, yeah? And the best loop is for loops for array. So let's say you have array of size 5. So just follow this formula, like you start with 0 because your element will always be 0. And make sure this is just less than, not less than or equal. Okay, because the moment you put equal, that means you are accessing index outside the bound. Okay, outside the bound. So make sure it is less than the size and then count plus plus. So just remember this formula. The moment you remember this formula, then you are okay. All right. What people normally have error in terms of handling array is they put this instead of less, they put less than or equals to, right? And then the count here is supposed to be 0, but it starts with 1. Okay. But for MATLAB, you can put count equals to 1. All right. So this piece of code is going to store 99 for all the elements. Yeah. Okay. So this is the formula. You start with 0, and then this is the size, and then count plus plus. Okay, initialization. The one that I did, the one I have shown to you just now is just array declaration. Okay. If let's say you want to declare. Okay. Let's say you want to declare. How to declare an array? So you can use this. Okay, this is how to declare. All right. So suppose the size is 6. Okay. So this is let's say here 0. Okay. So I'm initializing x0 to 2, x1 to 3, x2 to 4, so on and so forth. Okay. So if let's say I run this, so you can see that the cout x0 is 2 because 2 is already being initialized to the first element. All right. What happened if let's say I only initialize 5? Okay. That means your last element will become 0. Okay. So this is S0, S1, S2, S3, S4. Let's say I try to access what is X5. So I think this one is 0. Okay. So all elements initialized to 0 by default. This is global array. Local array, all elements uninitialized by default. Okay, what do you mean by global array? Global array means if let's say I create a global array, right? So maybe something like this. This is global array, right? We have seen global variable previously. This is just global array. Okay. Now, how to initialize? I did mention to you just now. Just extend this to something like this. Make sure you use this curly bracket. Okay, that's how you initialize your variable. Okay. Don't exceed the array size. If you exceed, it will give you, I think, some compiler will give you syntax error, but you might erase some memory location value lah. Yeah. So okay, this one it gives you some error. Too many initializer because this one is supposed to be only 6. You must make sure you don't exceed the size. Okay. All right. So this is just another example whereby you do the initialization. You have size is 12, so everything is 12 values. Okay. Partial array. If let's say you initialize partially, which is fine. Here the size is 7. We initialize only 4. This is fine. Okay. So 1 to 4, 8 is here. Then whatever that is left, everything will be initialized to 0. Okay. Okay. What happened if let's say you are not sure what is the size, for example, right? Can you just omit the size? when you declare. Normally, when you declare, you cannot omit the size. When you declare, you must put size lah, right? But if you initialize, you can omit the size. But C++ is going to check how many initialization value. If this is 4, then automatically C++ know the size is 4. Okay, you cannot just let's say you remove this. Okay, this one doesn't work. Okay, so you are going to get, I think you are going to get syntax error over here because storage must be declared. Okay, so must declare. If let's say you don't want to declare and you can initialize, the moment you initialize, so over here, C++ will know that, okay, your size is 6. Okay, because it will just refer to this one. So yeah, 6. Okay. No bound checking. Okay, what do you mean by bound checking? If your size is 1, 2, 3, 4, you need to do the checking of the bound by yourself. Okay, example. Yeah? So because C++ is not going to check whether you have exceed your array or not. Okay, some good compiler is going to check. I mean, the moment you exceed, it will give you a warning. Okay, some compiler, but some compiler will just did not show anything. Then if let's say your program goes wrong, and then sometimes it's not, I mean, it's hard for you to debug. Okay, so you have to when you write your program, you have to make sure that you don't exceed the bound. Yeah. Okay, the following code define 3-element array and then write 5 values to it. Okay, this is one example whereby you set size equals to 3. Okay, and then for this loop, the count is less than 5. Okay, so what happens is that you are going to have values 4, values 5, in which it exceeds the size. Yeah. Some compiler is going to give you error. The array out of bound. Okay, but some will not. So what happened? If let's say you exceed, so what happened in the memory is that suppose you have array of size 3, right? This is your array of size 3. So when 100 is being put here, whatever that is outside the size, if there is no error, then the program will keep on putting the value in the neighboring memory. Okay. So if let's say you have data inside this memory, then your data will be lost. I mean, will be replaced. So this is not something that we want to do. Be careful because you might corrupt other memory location. Okay. Or maybe you might crash some programs. Okay, next is off by 1 error. This is normally happen. Normally count, we are going to start with 0, but it is off by 1 error. Suddenly programmer put this as 1, and then this is supposed to be less than, but since there is less than or equals, the index is off by 1. All right, so this is what we call as off by 1 error. So just be very careful over here. Normally we start with 0, and then this is just less than rather than less than or equals to. Yeah. Okay. Range-based for loop. This one might be new because previously in C++ we don't have this range-based for loop. Okay, this is maybe introduced in the past 2-3 years. This is a way for you to write for loops differently, quite differently from the normal for loops. Yeah. Okay, what is range-based for loop? Let's say you have array and then you want to access from the start to end, right? You want to access from the start to end. What you normally do is you are going to have for loops. Yeah, let me just put here for loop int I equals to 0, I less than the size, okay, I plus plus. This is how you iterate from the beginning and towards the end. So maybe you can just see out here. Okay. So if you run okay, this one. Okay. So you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Okay. Now, another way of writing the for loops is using range-based for loop. Okay, let's go straight away to the format. Yeah? This is the format. Okay. You write for, and then data type, a variable. Okay, just create another variable, and then colon, and then array. Okay, so if I were to write this, I can just write for. Okay, let me just for. All right, I'm going to introduce what you call a variable. You can put any variable over here, and then separated by colon, and then over here you just write the name of the array. So the name of the array here is X. So I'm just put it X over here, and then I can just simply cout I. Okay, cout I means the I refers to the element by element inside the array. So you are going to have the same effect 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 as well. But now you are writing the for loop in range-based format or range-based way. Okay. I think this one C# is also having a range-based for loop. Suppose let's say you learn C#. For C++, I think this is something new. Maybe introduced 2, 3 years back. Yeah, another way of writing for loops. So just create a variable and then refer to which array, and then just just write your statement over here. Yeah. So the first one is data type, any type, and then range variable, the name of range variable, and then of course this is the array, and then separated by colon. Yeah. Let's have a look at example over here. This is initialized to 5 elements. Okay, as you can see over here, we create a variable. That variable should have the same data type lah, yeah, and then separated by colon, and then you refer to the array. Okay, and then when you check out, you are going to use this variable, okay, to access each element. So you are no longer use the index, okay, like this, but that index has been replaced by the range variable. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's finish this range-based for loop before we take 5. Okay. Okay, what happened here? If let's say normally we use range-based value or variable over here to do something that you are not going to change the element. Okay, for example, this one is for display. Okay, so display element, display value of an element, you are not going to change anything inside the array lah, right? If you are going to change something inside the array, over here you must use reference. Okay. Example of changing something inside the array is cin. Okay. So for example here, if let's say I run, okay, I'm changing to maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay. So if let's say I don't put reference over here, what happens is that I'm trying to change the I, but this I is not actually referring to the exact location of the array. All right. So as you can see over here, I change it to 10, 20, 0, 40, 50, 60. But when I see out again the content of X, it still maintain the earlier value 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Yeah. So if let's say I want to change the value of inside the array, I need to pass this by reference. Then when I run, let's say I change this to other values, then it will follow, right? Okay. All right, so that's why it depends. If let's say you want to use range base for loops, ask yourself, are you going to change anything inside the array or not? If yes, then you use reference. If no, maybe you just want to display things, then no need to put array variable here. Yeah. Okay. This is another variant. Normally we put type over here, right? But if let's say you kind of lazy, you don't want to know what kind of type that this array represents, so you might just put the auto and then okay, and then write as usual. Yeah. Okay. So when to use range base and when to use regular for loops. Okay, when to use this is range base and when to use this regular. If you are familiar with regular, just use regular. Range base is normally being used if let's say you specifically want to traverse from beginning until the end. All right. You can use this. But if let's say you want to maybe traverse maybe up to, I don't know, size maybe up to 3 only, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. Maybe you want to traverse up to this, the first 4. The first 4. So do not use this. Okay, do not use range base. Range base will only be used whenever you want to access from the beginning until the end of the array. If you just randomly want to access different place, so just use the normal for loops. Yeah. Right. So range base can be used in any situation where you need to step through the elements of the array. Okay. Through the elements of the array means from beginning until the end. You do not need to use the subscript. But if you need to use the subscript, then use the regular for loops. Yeah. Okay, we take 5. Then we continue later. Okay, let's continue. All right. Next part is how you process array contents. I think we have seen earlier. This is example of processing array content. Cin means processing means you are changing the content of array. Yeah. Few things to note. Yeah. When you use increment or decrement operator over here, make sure you put the increment and decrement operator at the right place. If you put it outside the bracket, for example, like this, yeah. So that means you are incrementing what? Incrementing the value. All right, incrementing the value of the elements. If you put plus plus inside the bracket, that means you are incrementing the I in this case. Yeah, you are incrementing the I. Let's have a look at some example over here. So suppose I so if let's say I put here x 0, okay, plus plus. Okay, what do you mean by this? I'm incrementing the value of x0, right? Okay, what would be the output? Anyone? What would be the output? 2 and 3, is it? Okay. Let's try to run and then see what's the output. It's actually 3 and 3. Okay, 3 and 3 because this is x0, which is 2, right? Increment 2 by 1, so you're going to have 3. Okay, so that's why this is 3. And then, of course, x1 is 3. Now, if let's say I put it inside, suppose int I equals to 0, and then I put here I plus plus. What will be the output? 2, 3 or 3, 3? Who says 2, 3? Anyone? Who says 3, 3? 3, 3. You're not sure. Okay, here you are incrementing the I, right? You are incrementing the I. So, but you have to be very careful because the plus plus comes after I. If let's say I run this, you still have 2, 3. Why? Because this one comes after, right? So that means this is actually x0. Okay, nothing happened, right? So this one is supposed to be, sorry, this is not a good example. So this one I, this one is also maybe I plus 1. Okay, so this one is supposed to be C out again. Right. Maybe not a good example. All right, so this is a good example. All right, so here, C out, your I is 0, okay, plus plus. So what is the output? 2, 3 or 3, 3? Huh? Who says 2, 3? Who says 3, 3? Other than that, no response. I think it's different. You're going to have 2, 4. Why? Because x, this comes after, right? After I, that means x0. X0 is 2, right? And then I is incremented. So your I is now becomes 1 after you have C out. Okay. So now it is referring to this. But then when you see out x, I plus 1, your 1 plus 1 becomes 2. It becomes x2. X2 is 4. Okay, so that's why you have 2, 4. But it's quite different if, let's say, you put this after, before. Okay, that means we increment first, then this one will become x1. X1 is 3, so you're going to have 3, 4. Okay? Can or not? All right. So always there are two things about this increment and decrement operator. First of all, need to check whether it is prefix or postfix. That's number one. And then whether your plus plus, is it inside this bracket or outside the bracket. If it is inside the bracket, you are incrementing the index. If it is outside the bracket, you are incrementing the values inside here. Okay, right? Okay, so in this case, we are incrementing the value. Add 1 to the value of test I. If it is inside the bracket, that means you are incrementing the index, not the value, right? Okay. How do you copy one array to another array? You cannot do this. Okay. This is how you copy. You copy element by element, right? So if let's say I want to copy, this is X, maybe I have another one which is int Y. Okay. So I cannot simply copy Y equals to X. It doesn't work this way, right? So if I were to copy the content of X into Y, this is not the way. You need to actually copy one by one, all right? So copying one by one, same formula, I less than size. Okay, I plus plus. All right, and then over here, you just copy lah one by one. That means X I, sorry, Y I equals to XI. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm copying element by element, all right, into Y. This is how you do copying for an array. Yeah, this one is wrong. Okay, so this is what the copying is all about. How do you print? Of course, print also need to be done element by element. Okay, so suppose I want to print the value of Y after I copied. So I can just see out Y I. Okay. Size. Okay. So I'm copying the content of Y after I copied the array. So you can see that it has all the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. So similar content. Yeah. So that's how normally we will always use for loops to in conjunction with array. There is an exception though. Yeah. If let's say you are using char array, something like this, yes, you can simply see out without using for loop. Yeah, without using for loop. So if let's say if you are using integer, then you cannot simply see out. Why? Because this one will give you error. Okay. So let me just something. Okay. All right. Some compiler will give error. Some compiler will give you what do you call wrong output lah. Yeah. This is basically the address of y. Okay. All right. This is the right way to print the content of an array. This is using range-based loop. Range-based. Okay. You create a variable of the integer, and then this is the name of the array. Okay. And then see out val. Okay. Okay, this is just codes that you can use in order to find the total. Okay, the total of your values inside your array and do averaging. Let's say you want to compute average. Yeah. So what you normally do is, of course, you create a for loops. Okay, for each iteration, sum equals to sum plus test, whatever index over here, right? So basically, it will total up all the values in your array, and then once you are outside from the for loops, then you start calculating the average. Okay, because average is basically total up everything and then divide by the number of elements. Okay. So this is using range-based for loops, same thing. And okay, this portion of code is to find the highest value in an array. Again, you use for loops. For each iteration, you check each element is it greater than the highest. If yes, you put that as highest. Okay, just assign that as highest. Okay, initially we assign highest to be the first element. Okay, before we enter the loop, and then the second element. That's why the count start with 1. Yeah, the count start with 1 because the highest is now assigned with the first element. All right. Okay, so this is for the highest value. This is for lowest value. Just change the let's change this. Yeah. Okay. Partially filled array. Sometimes when you want to create array, right? For example, if let's say the number of students in this program, the number of students in this program, let's say I want to create a program to handle whatever values of number of students. I need to create an array of big size. Okay. Even though I don't know how many students will be registering into this course, for example. Yeah. Now there will be condition whereby you have big size of array, but the number of elements is just a few, right? So this is what we meant by partially filled array, because the size you need to spell out at the beginning. You need to make sure that the array is big enough, but you are still not sure how many elements that will get involved, right? So you always get partially filled array because normally you are not sure how many elements that will get involved. So your job is to make sure the array large enough, because otherwise it will go out of bound. Then you need to use a counter to keep track the number of items. Okay. Example is something like this. Okay, this is comparing array. No, this is not example. Okay, this is something else. Comparing array. This is just use case lah. Use case. If let's say you have two array, you want to compare the content. Okay. You need to create a loops. Okay, whether it's while loop or whether it is for loops. This is while loop. Okay. So you check if let's say it's equal and then count is less than size. If this is not okay, if the first element is not equal to the first element, for example, so you set this as false. There's okay. There's a few ways of doing this. You can use for loops, and then suppose it is false, then you can just quit. Okay, quit from the loop. You can put exit or break. Okay, that's another way lah. Yeah. So in this case, they use this array equal. Okay. Parallel array. Okay, parallel array is let's say you use more than one array to handle various kind of data. Various kind of data. Okay, normally we don't use parallel array lah. I mean, normally we will use 3D array, 2D array, something like that. Okay, seldom that we use parallel array. Then this is being introduced. Then I need to explain to all of you. If let's say you use more than one array to keep track values for a person, for example. Okay, I think let's better to have a look at example, right? In this case, we have ID array, we have average array, we have grade array. So maybe this is for one student, yeah. So for example, the first student ID is going to have the average mark, okay, and then what would be the grade. You can use this in your assignment if you want, yeah. So in this case, we use more than one array to basically represent different values for the same students, okay, different value for the same employee. So this is just another example, yeah. The moment you use more than one array to point to the same student, for example, so something like that. So this is what we call as parallel array. Okay, so this is what happened if let's say you are referring to employee one. So you have one array representing the number of hours, one array representing the pay rate. So this is array number one, this is array number two. So these two are basically related to each other. So we call this as parallel because at index 0 for pay rate, index 0 for hours are referring to employee number one, for example. Yeah, this one is employee number two. This one is employee number three. So it's kind of parallel, yeah, in this sense. Okay. I'm not sure when can I stop this. Okay, I will discuss until array as function argument, and then we will stop until two-dimensional array. Okay, bear with me. All right. What you have seen so far, okay? So what is important in array? You need to know how to declare an array, how to initialize, how to use for loop to access your array, and yeah, those are some of the important things. And then maybe range-based loop, range-based loop. Okay, so if let's say you want to pass array as argument, if you can still remember the function, function, let me just show to you. Okay, if you can still remember, for function, you need to have function declaration, right? You need to have function call. Let's say I'm having display function, yeah. All right, and then I want to pass array. I want to pass X because I want to display the content of X. So I can just write over here X, okay, because the name of the array. And then, of course, over here, I need to do function definition. Okay, so display. Okay. Now over here, how to write this? How to write your parameter? So you can just take this, same thing lah. Okay, put it here. But you need to remove this, the value over here. So you can maybe give a new name over here, maybe ARR. So you can write your for loops. Less than, okay, let us put this as global, yeah. Put as global, so your size will be known here, and then here also I can just simply use size. Okay, and then I can just write here cout ARR I then NL. Okay, so if let's say I run display was not declared, okay, I need to put function declaration somewhere here. Okay, All right. So as simple as this, this is one example whereby we send array. Okay, previously in your function, you know how to send variable, right? But now I'm sending an array. This is the changes lah, right? The way you declare your parameter over here, and then everything will be settled, right? So array as function argument. Suppose you call a function. So suppose test is your array. So just pass the array name, okay, and then your function header is like this. Okay, you have the bracket without the size. I think it's fine also if let's say you put size over here. I think should not be a problem. Yeah, okay. So you can see, provided that your size is actually declared as constant over here. Yeah. But normally we leave this as blank, okay, because we don't use global variable. This one I'm using global variable. So, all right. If let's say you are not using global variable, yeah, what I did over here is I'm having global variable. So that's why the size here, I can just source from this. But if let's say I don't have the luxury to declare global variable, so I must pass my size together with my array. Okay, like this. Okay, I must pass this to here, so that I think constant also. Is it? Okay, let's try. Okay, so I must pass the size to this function so that I can actually control the for loops. Yeah. So that's why array size is here as your second argument. And then of course, this is how you do the function header and so on. All right. So this is another example. Function call. You pass the array. Okay, this is array. And then normally we pass together with what is the size of the array. The reason being is because inside this value, inside this function, we want to know the size so that we can control the for loops. Yeah. Okay. One thing to highlight is that when you modify array in any of your function, yeah, if let's say you modify your array in this function, your array in the main function will also be modified. Okay, because when you pass your array, it's quite similar to passing reference variable. Any changes made to the array in the local function are reflected in the actual array in calling function. Okay, so just remember this one. All right, any question on array? Can I know what topic are you covering in the lab right now? Have you done function? Function dah? Not yet. Not yet. So you are still in loops, yeah? Is it? Oh, okay. Quite slow lah. We have already covered many topics. Okay, I guess that would be all. If you don't have any question, hopefully by now everyone has their own group. How's your assignment as of now? Okay. Quite easy. Any question? Focus on your milestone 1 first lah. Yeah. All right. Thank you.